To let it be or to not let it be? Should vendors disclose vulnerabilities that are being used in active cyber operations?
So Stan, what are our Western government operatives been up to lately?
Well, I can't say I know, but according to this article by MIT, which I found very interesting, they explain that everyone knows Google's Project Zero, that Google's Project Zero recently documented this 6-part report about a sophisticated adversary who was using zero-day vulnerabilities across a variety of devices like Android, Windows, iOS. I think we might have even covered it here on ThreatTraq. And according to this MIT review article, supposedly this wasn't just a regular, campaign that we hear about from bad guys. Supposedly, it was operated by Western government operatives conducting a live counterterrorism operation. And MIT, when they wrote about it, I think they raised a couple of interesting topics, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I feel like it's a little bit philosophical, some of these things, but it's definitely an interesting conversation for anyone who is active in this space. So, according to them, by exposing this, they kind of jeopardize this live counterterrorism mission, and potentially, it is like putting things in jeopardy, preventing the mission from being carried out successfully. Those are some of the things that potentially could happen. For me, it raises this like philosophical question of, should companies stop vulnerabilities and exploits that they discover that might be part of some sort of a live counterterrorism operation? I kind of have a few opinions that I've been giving this some thought based on all the different things. And I realize there's like a couple of different perspectives. Like one perspective is, a company's objective probably is to make sure that their clients and customers and products are safe and secure for all of their users. So when they observe that they're not secure, like, Project Zero is doing through their analysis, then they should take action and they should secure those vulnerabilities in those products so that everyone in the ecosystem can be safe. But there's another perspective, which is, if you're conducting a live operation, it could be a life or death situation, and perhaps sometimes it's better to wait or not make a, big statement or a big release about these things. Perhaps, those operations have to be carried out. And I guess there's different reasons for, why people would justify one versus the other. So I have a ton of other thoughts about this topic, but before I go on, I was just curious what you guys think.
I have the same struggle that you do, I think. Is if I'm in the business to protect and defend, or even to sell a security product, if I detect something, I want to incorporate it, shut it down, right? I want to do that work that I've been hired to do. But on the other hand, if this effort that's occurring is one that is protecting, the nation's interests or even lives, it's a struggle, right? Because you have to think, how do I do this responsibly? Where I'm providing that value add, but also not jeopardizing, my own personal safety possibly.
So I guess, like you two said, if there's an active investigation, I suppose, right? And just for a high level, example, let's use phone tapping, for example. It's one thing if they're sitting there, right, and they have people listening to people's conversations all day, trying to wait for somebody to say, I'm going to do this, or we're going to do this, or we're going to attack that. That's one thing, because you're ingesting all of the other information that does not necessarily have anything to do with what the Western operatives are looking for. But if the data is coming into a big pit, right, and they're just looking for a keyword that's related to an investigation, and they pull that keyword, maybe try to associate who said that keyword. So I guess what I'm trying to get at here, to not draw it out, if they have a way of doing it where it doesn't expose the public to giving up their privacy to an extent where nothing they say is private or nothing they do on the web is private, or if they if they hit one of these, watering hole websites that it says in the article that malware is planted on, right? Just because they want to go there, they didn't know that that site had a vulnerability, right? Maybe they're shopping for something extremely private. Now, whoever is monitoring that activity sees them go and hit that site, drops the payload on their machine. What are they doing? Are they looking for something very specific, or are they just getting a broad amount of data? Either way, I don't like it, but I mean, they're going to do what they want to do, right? Governments are going to do what they have to do regardless. So I guess if they have a way of doing it, of like a needle in a haystack kind of thing, or being very direct as to what they're looking for, I'm not really okay, but I'm better than if they're just taking all the data from somebody's machine, looking around in it and pulling out stuff that's arbitrary just because they can make money, or they can raise your insurance policy because you're looking for cigarettes online or something, or I don't know. It gets crazy. I know it's a hard.
It gets interesting. I think there's a couple of other ways to make it even more interesting, and I wonder if it changes our answers. And just to mention it, I guess it's something that Google had to wrestle with as part of deciding if they're going to cover this or not. But here's one thing that, like, as I was thinking about this problem, I changed. What if it didn't say Western government operatives? What if it said Eastern government operatives? Would that change your opinion about it? Like if it was like a totally different government that was doing it and you were aware of this vulnerability? I think for most people it might. I'm guessing. Actually, I'm presuming. I don't know. But it definitely skews maybe the way you think about it. And for me, I'm always curious, like, how would you know if there's a live operation? So at any given point in time, there might be lots of different operations across the globe. And we actually talk about them all the time here, when they're found out and somebody publishes an article or research about it. And I think quite often we say, like, such and such adversary did such and such thing. And we kind of say, yeah, it was good that it was reported because now we can look for it and we can kind of shut it down. I realize there's one important thing. There's different kinds of adversaries, and some have an ethics line that's a little bit higher than others. So there's something to account for as well over there. Well, with that respect. The other thing I was curious about is, what is right and wrong and how can you arbitrate it? It's kind of a little bit tough. So I think a reasonable way, like as I was thinking through this, I was like, a reasonable way to think about it is everyone kind of has their job to do. So a company's job is to keep their products secure and their customers safe. So they have to do that job as much as they can, and they have to produce secure products, and they have to do that. And they, on a daily basis, may never know if there's an ongoing operation or not. And governments, they have to do what they have to do to keep their citizens safe. And they carry out that mission the way they carry it out. But sometimes if you keep them independent, it'll probably be okay. But I think it's, we've seen like with WannaCry, I think WannaCry is a great example where a very powerful exploit was being used probably for very important things. And then it got leaked by the bad guys. And now we have a worm that has not stopped since, I think, 2017. And the more there are tools like this, they can fall into the wrong hands, even if they're being used for a really, nice thing or something that is justifiable. But they could fall into the wrong hands. And when they do, they could be armed and used in a totally different way against, people like us. So I think at the end, when I think through it this way, I think it is better to patch the bugs because I suspect, like I said, everyone has their job to do. like Google, their job is to create secure, operating system and protect their users. So they should carry that mission out. And government's job is to protect their citizens. And I'm sure they have ways to figure out how to carry out that mission. And, they're obviously going to pursue that. Those are my thoughts.
We're playing a cat and mouse game with the technology, but the dog's also jumped in the mix here too. And it's like, well, we can protect one, from everybody, or, you just can't limit it. And I think I agree with you, Stan, is that you just got to do your job. And if that means that the government, whoever the government is, or whether it's the good guy or the bad guy, it just means that they're going to have to keep raising that bar up higher and find something new, I guess. I don't know how to say it.
They're going to have to work harder because they're just looking for an easy way to get the data. That's what it comes down to, right? So they got to work harder, work smarter, and I agree, Stan. I think they should all be patched. We shouldn't give everybody the keys to the kingdom.
Well, it's a very, like you said, a very loaded question, very philosophical, I think, the discussion. I think the MIT Review article does a good job covering it and maybe bring up some points or some perspectives that maybe we haven't explored. But for me, I kind of, after having thought through the problem, I think it's best to patch. And if there's a problem, you should try to take care of it as much as possible. But, if you know that you're endangering lives, then that's obviously, if you do know for a fact that you're endangering lives, then you should make sure that you're not doing that. But if you don't know and you can't know, then you have to do the best you can, in your mission.